Yes, I am Yori Folani. Hope we meet you. Well, let's look today at the synergy that is going to be required between the legislature and the executive. We've spoken about this in various, configurations, but today, our guest is a person who is experienced in that area. He's Senator Babajide Omoworare. He is the former special assistant to the former President Muhammadu Buhari on National Assembly matters. And back in the day, he was a majority leader in the Lagos State House of Assembly. Senator Omoworare, good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning, my brother. Good morning,
Indeed.
Nigeria.
Indeed. So as I was saying, you probably better than a lot in the sense that you've been practical about it. You've been in the legislature and you've been the advisor to a president on matters in the legislature, in the National Assembly. So what do you think would be? We're talking about the imperatives now. We've heard a lot about. Oh, we want to be sure that we don't have a rubber stamp kind of a thing. People have said we will never have a rubber stamp kind of a thing. So, but there has been talk, and that's probably because it was thought that the executive took a very active role in the emergence of leaders of the National Assembly. So what would be, for you, the most important imperative of relations between the National Assembly and the executive?
Well, good morning, my brother. Let me start by saying that I thank you for inviting me for this program. And the first thing is that for record purposes, the National Assembly has done very well so far, so good, putting in place everything that should be put in place. Now, the National Assembly, as the legislature, at that particular level, at the federal level, cannot operate on its own volition, cannot operate alone, cannot operate as a silo. It has to relate with the executive. There is no way people call the National Assembly names, but we have not realized, maybe most Nigerians or some Nigerians have not realized the fact that the National Assembly is part of government. The National Assembly is not just another government. There is only one government that has three arms of government. Three arms, but just one government. So the National Assembly is just one out of the three arms. There must be cooperation, there must be coordination, and there must be collaboration. We must speak the same language before we can perform. If we do not speak the same language, if we do not see high ball to high ball, then that is the end of the dispensation. Then that will have defined the 4 years. The first day, the second day, the third day, the first week of the parliament determines the 4-year tenure of every parliament. So what I think Nigerians should expect with what has transpired in the last few weeks is a government that will work in unison, a government that will work as a government, that one arm of government will not be unnecessarily antagonistic to the other arm of government. You can disagree. The whole essence of what we are doing is to agree, but we can disagree with a view to agreeing on every issue. But I must not be unnecessarily antagonistic to you. So the issues are very clear. What the National Assembly has done is to set up committees. The next thing after inauguration is to allocate seats for members, which is usually done by ranking in furtherance of order 2 of the rules of the National Assembly. The Senate has done that. They will also allocate offices. The reps has even gone further to set up committee that will cater for a few things. About 7 committees were set up, ad hoc committees The most important for the purpose of our discourse is the Committee on Legislative Agenda, which I'm sure the Senate will also soon set up. For every parliamentarian, you have individual agenda. And when you get to the parliament, you discover that there is going to be a corporate agenda. There's going to be an agenda for all, which is the legislative agenda of House of Reps, legislative agenda of the Senate. Now, the president himself will also come up with his own legislative agenda. The President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, Commander-in-Chief, has, before the election, let us know what his agenda is, based on the renewed hope to some extent. But that renewed hope agenda now has to be distilled. You now have to look at the issue of security. You have to look at the issue of, he elaborated a lot on economy, on ICT, on job creation, on power generation, and so on and so forth. So these are issues, and we have seen that already. President Muhammadu Buhari signed the amendment to the Constitution that removed electricity generation from exclusive list. Now, the electricity bill itself has been assented to by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So what we should expect is distilling the renewed hope agenda. Which of these programs, which of the agenda, which of the policies, which of the plans will require legislative measure, will require approval of the Senate, confirmation of the Senate, or a bill, an executive bill that will go to the Parliament. And whether we like it or not, the Parliament now will also sit down with the executive, and they must agree to prioritize. If they don't prioritize, then nothing will happen. Nothing will happen. So that is what we should expect going forward.
Okay. Now, thank you very much for that sort of overarching view of how it should be, and indeed taking from actually what is on ground now. But is there a place, because when you were speaking about the different arms of government and governance, is there a place for independence of, for example, the legislature? We often like to speak of independence of the judiciary, for example. Does that, without prejudice to what you have said, is it desirable for the National Assembly to still have its independence? You spoke about a legislative agenda that I imagine the headships of those places, of those two houses, would have come up with themselves. Of course, keeping an eye on their party and the programs of their party. But I guess the question is there a place for the concept of the independence of the judiciary and the legislature, for example?
I'm a stickler. Thank you very much, my brother. I'm a stickler for independence of both the legislature and the judicature. I'm a stickler for it. There is separation of powers, and we all know this theory of the three different arms of government as segregated by the Constitution itself in sections 4, 5, and 6. Segregated, clearly segregated. And also in chapters, I think it's 5, 6, and 7, which now put into details how they will relate. But what matters most is that they must relate. And I think it was James Madison that said it. Once you have separation of power, you must also have checks and balances. You cannot have checks and balances if the two arms of government, I think there is a wrong conception when it comes to the relationship of the executive and the legislature. One person cannot stay in Sokoto and the other person stays in Lagos, and you want to relate. You must meet. You must have a budget that must be presented. Before the budget is presented, every senator, every House of Reps member must have made, let me put it more advisedly, every serious senator, every serious member of the House of Representatives must have an input one way or the other. They could still have an input when it's presented, but you cannot just, the president cannot just present the budget without some form of discussion going on. Every bill that comes, every executive bill that comes to the parliament, we discuss. That was what I did for 4 years for President Muhammadu Buhari. I will engage senators. I will engage chairmen of committees. I will engage members of committees. I will engage presiding officers, the Senate President, the Deputy Senate President. So there must be that synergy between the executive and the legislature. That does not mean that the independence has been lost. The President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, will not come to the floor to move motion. We will not do the function as already stipulated, as already spelled out in the Constitution, the functions of the senators, the functions of members of House of Representatives, even as provided for in the standing orders of the Senate and the rules. The best it can do is to make phone calls and to engage. His ministers will engage. His liaison officer, the presidential liaison officer, the senior special assistant to the president will also engage. There must be, like I said earlier on, cooperation, coordination, and collaboration. You cannot just bring a bill without discussing. That does not mean you have lost your independence. The ball will now be in the court of the parliament to decide whether to agree with the president or not to agree with the president. Lobbying is done everywhere in the world. Lobbying is not done by, which is a general opinion that we are trying to correct, by financial inducement. No. Lobbying is done by engagement. Lobbying is done by going to someone and saying that I want this bill passed. And the person will tell you that these are the things, the issues I have against the bill. So the National Assembly will not lose its independence by engaging with the executive. It is in the interest of the country that the two arms of government, though the judicature is more reserved, is an arm of government that does not even say anything. We just see them there, you know. But the legislature and the executive must engage each other. They must discuss. There must be some form of negotiation along the line. There must be a priority. The essence of the legislature and the executive, the first meeting point from this moment will be after the House of Reps has come up with its legislative agenda. The Senate will also come up with its legislative agenda. The executive, the presidency must come up with its own executive legislative agenda. What are the bills we will take to the National Assembly? Are we amending this particular bill? Are we introducing a new measure? We want to take entertainment industry very seriously. Do we need a bill to that effect? We want to take revenue generation very seriously. Do we still need the finance bill? Or do we want to dispense with the finance bill? We want to ensure that the budget is passed timeously. So by October or September, or latest first week in October, we want to make sure that the president comes to the parliament to lay the budget on the table. Going forward, what do we now do after that? We now decide that we must engage the legislature. The executive must sit down. The legislature must sit down. They cannot do this with somebody sitting in Maiduguri and the other person sitting in Port Harcourt. It won't work. You have to all come down and sit down and discuss. That does not mean one arm of government is losing its independence. So when you discuss, and I'll tell you that my own priority is security. And you will tell me, Senate will say, my priority is revenue generation. House of Reps may say that my priority is fighting corruption. So if you want to fight corruption, where is the whistleblower bill? Do we have a member that has already presented one? Or is there going to be an executive whistleblowers bill? And so on and so forth. These are engagements that normally go on, and there is nothing we can do about it. That is the way government is run. That does not mean that one arm of government has lost its independence. But at the end of the day, when an executive bill is pushed to the parliament, the first reading is done, the second reading is done, is sent to committee or is done at the committee of the whole, as the case may be, and a report is submitted. The ball is in the court of the legislature. The legislature can disagree.
Okay.
We normally discuss these issues. Do you tinker with it or do you tamper with it? And I normally say that the legislature is the law-making organ of government.
Okay.
The legislature cannot tamper with the executive bill, but the legislature can tinker with the executive bill. It is, at the end of the day, whether the bill is passed or not, the buck stops on the table of the presiding officers and the collective will of the legislature. Of course, the president has the power to withhold assents, which, of course, as part of checks and balances, the legislature also has the power to upturn the veto under Section 58 or 59, as the case may be, of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Because when you hear about these legislative matters from other parts of the world, of course, as you've just said, a president can veto a bill. And sometimes when things are feisty, when the president is looking in a particular direction that the National Assembly is, I don't know if the word is hostile, is a bit hostile to, or at least not completely on board. Sometimes you hear presidents threatening that they will veto any such, inclination that arrives at their desk. I mean, simply because in a presidential system, I think that that facility is there. The president can veto. But when as you spoke about the 4 years that you've been working on this particular subject matter, senior special assistant to the former president on National Assembly matters, arguably, the last president had a very, very good time with the National Assembly. I can't even remember, but please correct me if I'm wrong, I can't remember any sort of dissent or the president not getting what he wanted. Such was the relationship, I believe. So in that sense, perhaps there wasn't really too much of a challenge in the last administration. The National Assembly, arguably, was very, very shall we say, understanding of whatever the president's, the executive sent to it. What would be your comment to that assertion?
Let me even start by saying that maybe speaking with the benefit of hindsight, I was in Lagos House of Assembly between 1999 and 2007. I was chairman judiciary, then later on I became the majority leader. Then I now went to Osun to run for Senate. And I was in the Senate between 2011 and 2019 before I now became the special advisor to the president on legislative matters. So I've seen relationships between the executive and legislature. The legislature in Lagos, when I was there, and I believe the legislature still in Lagos, had very good relationship with the executive. The executive also has good relationship with the legislature. And that was what I met in 2011, between 2011 and 2015. But between 2015 and 2019, we had a very sour relationship between the executive and the legislature. Now, just opposing the 8th assembly with the 9th assembly that I was advisor to the president, that there was a good relationship. You will see that there is need to have good relationship. More measures were passed, more bills were passed, bills that would impact on the society. There is no competition in government. I keep saying that. We are voted for, appointed to serve the people. So it's not a function of this is my call, this is not your call. It's the call of the people, is to deliver public goods. So I'm seriously looking forward to a very cordial relationship between the executive and the legislature. And that is, from a perspective, how bills can be passed, how measures can be passed. I want to repeat myself. The legislature has the right to say, no, we don't agree with this. Let me now take you back to the seemingly good relationship that the executive and the legislature had under President Muhammadu Buhari. It was not as if we didn't have any disagreements, but we managed the disagreement we had. We had disagreements too many times. Ministers came to Senate, ministers came to reps, that if the process was not properly managed thereafter, it will have culminated into major fiasco between the executive and the legislature. There would have been serious rancor. But we managed it because we must do all. Over 75% of work that is done in Parliament is not done at plenary. It's not done in the full glare of everybody. A lot of committee work is done. A lot of oversight is done. Then a lot of relationship building is done. A lot of network is built. A lot of connection is made that are not done in public glare. So that seemingly almost utopian relationship was managed. The Parliament rejected a few nominations by Mr. President. We had a meeting and we agreed that if there is nothing wrong with this person's nomination, why must you reject the person's nomination? You cannot just reject my nomination and let it even count against me in my future endeavor, because you want to make a point against the executive. No, it's not done. If I've done anything wrong, if I don't have a NYSC certificate, for instance, if the position the president has nominated me for has an age benchmark, a threshold that I've not gotten to, then I don't have any business going there, and the Senate has the right to reject. And I think this was done on a number of occasions. But like I told you, we just kept managing it. We just kept managing it. The president sent a list of nominees to the Senate for NDDC. Senate passed it, and the president did not inaugurate them. The president instead set up an interim management committee, the former president that is. The Senate was very upset, but we managed it. The whole essence is just managing it. Okay. There must be conflict. There must be conflict.
Of course.
In politics.
Okay.
We must make sure that the conflicts do not become crisis. And if it becomes crisis, we must make sure that it does not escalate beyond crisis. At least we must have an opportunity to see each other and hear each other out and discuss issues. Why do you want this? I don't want it. And you articulate your position, and I also articulate my position, and we agree, and we harmonize our agreement, and we present it. That does not mean any harm of government has lost its independence. And like I said, back to your question, the seemingly good relationship we had was because we managed every situation that came up behind the scene. And I am sure this is also being done. We've seen how the proclamation was done by President Tinubu and the emergence of the presiding officers of the National Assembly. It was managed.
Okay.
It was not as if, it was not skewed in favor of executive or skewed in favor of legislature. It is skewed in favor of one government. It's just one government. We're just different arms of government.
All right.
Even if you are at the state level or at the local government level, you are just at another tier of governance. You are still part of this one government.
Okay. I appreciate that. And, let me take a break at this time. Please stay with us. We'll be right back, and we'll continue this conversation and maybe also take calls. Stay with us, please.
Politics is defined as getting what, where, when, and how. But in the mix, many things come to play to shape the political fortune of any country.
Honorable Minister, that's how you misinform the public.
From the political actors to the electorate, campaign to voting, from debates to policy decisions, big events happen to engage us in constant conversation.
That's what we're looking for. Not some people who are talking about ethnicity. No.
Who is on your mind?
Don't worry.
Join me every day on Politics Tonight, where we dissect issues that shape our political destiny. Politics Tonight, weekdays on TVC News.
Okay, you're welcome back. Our guest is Senator Babajide Omoworare, Senior Special Assistant in the last administration, that of President Muhammadu Buhari, on National Assembly matters. He also was the former Majority Leader, Lagos State House of Assembly. And, well, before I continue, Mr. George has called in when we're on break. Good morning to you, Mr. George.
Good morning, Uncle Harry. And good morning to your guest, the Senator.
Good morning.
The way I see things happening, the 10th National Assembly will not be able to fault any bill from this president. Because he himself, the president himself, is an intellectual, a former lawmaker, surrounded by experts in lawmaking. So the bill that is likely to come from the president, I don't see National Assembly being able to fault it. What I expect National Assembly to do in terms of, we are talking about synergy now. What I expect the National Assembly to help the presidency to do in terms of synergy is to checkmate waste and corruption at MDAs through the oversight functions. But from what we know, it is always not easy for the National Assembly members to do because of compromise. I stand to be corrected. The Senator guest, he has been in it. He knows what I'm talking about. The oversight thing, once it is compromised, the standard is lowered, and it is we, the people, that will suffer the effects. If the 10th National Assembly wants to prove me wrong, we want to see how they can help the president to oversight the functions of MDA. You will see the amount of savings we will do. It will be like the savings that we are getting from the fuel subsidy removal now. In America, for example, that we are copying their system, the president of the U.S. recently took a bill to the U.S. Congress. He called it infrastructural bill, trillions of dollars. The House vetted that bill to the letter. All the places, all the projects he wants to do, they vetted it to the letter. And there is periodic reporting to the House in the execution of the projects. We want to see something like that with our National Assembly members. That's what I want. We are seeing what the president is doing now. It's a complete departure of what has been before. Let the National Assembly members also take a cue. I will be, by His grace, in a few months' time or a year from now, we will be seeing whether what they are going to be doing will be different from what has been. We want a change for the better.
Okay.
To help the president to fix this country.
Thank you very much for calling in, Mr. George. Senator, I think we're going back. You've explained the whole matter of synergy, explained the whole matter about it's one government at the end of the day. But that viewer is bringing up the matter of a robust engagement between the two, which isn't necessarily hostility, but a robust engagement. Is that something that you think we can take for granted?
Let me just make 2 quick points. I agree with him. Let me start by saying that I agree with him with respect to the issue of oversight. And I agree with him with respect to the issue of the parliament doing the necessary things, looking at issues.
Okay,
entirely within to that extent. Let me first of all start with that perspective. A major source of discord between the legislature and the executive, understandably so, is the issue of appropriation, the issue of budgeting. The legislature is expected to do its work. The legislature is not expected hook, line, and sinker to agree with the executive. So, but the executive at the same time expects the legislature not to just cut some heads, not to just say Lagos Ibadan Express Road, using that as an example. Instead of spending 10 billion, we want you to spend 5 billion. You must come up with bill of quantity or BEME, as the case may be, to explain that, oh, your cost of cement, your cost of iron rod, your cost of laterite and stuff is too expensive. That's not the going rate. And we don't expect that to be the going rate in the next 1 year. So that is what we expect the legislature to do from the executive perspective. But the legislature has a right to look into it. Mm-hmm. But in looking into it, like it is a major source of discord. Whether proper work has been done before these cuts are done, before you move a figure from one head to the other, whether proper work has been done by the, and you must go, you cannot do it by sitting in your office.
Okay,
all the time.
I beg your
it
pardon.
Goes out.
Sorry, Senator, I beg your pardon. Your audio was dropping out from time to time. It's going to settle, but let me use that opportunity to bring in another caller, this time from Abuja. Mr. Agbenga, good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Uncle Yori. Good morning to you, to the Senator.
Good morning, sir.
In every democracy, there will be synergy between the executive and the legislature, because they are part of the government. In the USA, for example, where we borrow our democracy, by default, the Senate president is the vice president. By now, can we say that, oh, it's a rubber stamp because the vice president and the Senate president, so the senators or the Senate, the assembly there is a rubber stamp? No. Because the party has manifesto. The president has his own agenda and program. And he needs to execute it the speed of 4 years. It will need people, both in opposition and in his party, to work with him to achieve that, for the benefit of Nigeria and even for the Nigerians themselves. So, and if such a program is being put forward as a bill, I wouldn't expect the Senate or the Assembly to kind of throw it out because they want to show that they are independent. No, that is not being independent. I just think, sir.
Yes, I do.
Being independent is that you have your boundary, you have your own something, but you have to work together to achieve that goal. And people are calling the last assembly a rubber stamp. I don't think a rubber stamp because if you look at it, when the president was asking them to approve Loretta as the INEC commissioner, it was rejected. So these are instances you can give that they were not rubber stamp. And people will say, okay, because they always approve the loan that president asked for. And I ask them, this loan, were they not in the preparation, in the act? It was there in the act. And when the budget is approved and become an act, the president has to work on it. It's not a law. That what we should do, if we don't want to approve a law, is that we should say there should not be any budget deficit. Because when they have to borrow money to implement that budget, and you now say, okay, they are rubber stamp because they approve that law. I think that not being fair to all this assembly. They are not being fair to them. We should ask them not to pass a budget that has deficit. We don't agree.
All right then. Well, thank you very much, Gbenga, for calling in from Abuja. Before you go, Senator, into maybe your comment on Mr. Gbenga's provision, I want to bring you back to what you said just before that call came in, and you were talking about the work that legislators also need to do. They just don't just get up and speak. They're supposed to have offices. I think I remember that provision is made for them to have offices, research facilities. Since you were in there, is this indeed the practice? Do legislators actually maintain offices and research people so that they can check things out? Because I don't imagine they want to take the figures and the workings of the executive hook, line, and sinker. They ought to be able to verify by themselves, independently, what the facts are about a matter. Since you were quite clear on the matter that no, it's a lot of hard work. People don't just get up and say they want to do because I want to be different, so I'm not going to agree. No, it doesn't work like that. But it is a big challenge because it's not just a number of parties in the assembly, it might be the state assembly, it might be national assembly. It's not just different parties, also different people and temperaments. In the same way as lawyers talk about certain judges having certain temperaments. And if you have a certain case before a certain lawyer, oh, that lawyer, that judge, for instance, is very, very strict when it comes to, victimization of minors, for instance. So, that there's this whole mix, and it can be quite challenging. Take, for instance, the issue of the death penalty. So I just want to put that next to the example you gave earlier, that, look, what if a person has to have a youth corps certificate? And that's clear. If it's there, it's there. If it's not there, it's not there. But it's not the same as, for instance, moral issues, for example. So how does you can see it's a very, very challenging job that the legislators have, as challenging as that of the president, perhaps, in a different sort of way.
Yes. Your first question, do legislators have enough presence on ground? Yes, they do.
Offices and research facilities.
To the best of my knowledge. Mm-hmm. To the best of my knowledge, I had, let me explain, let me break it down. You must have constituency office, first and foremost. That is speaking as an individual senator or member of House of Reps, or even a member of a state House of Assembly. When I was in Lagos House of Assembly, on Yaya Abaton in Ogba in Lagos, I had my constituency office, and I did my constituency surgeries every Friday. The 7th and 8th Senate, I had 2 offices. I had one in Ife in More, and I had one in Ilesha. Do you understand? So it now depends on who is populating those offices. Are people just going there to play Ludo, to play draft, or to play table tennis and stuff? Or do you have serious-minded people? And let me even say this. The National Assembly even goes around the country to ensure that this is done. The National Assembly as an institution goes around all over the constituencies and the senatorial districts to ensure that you have constituency offices. That is one. But, so, do you have a researcher working with you? In the United States, where, like the 2 last callers have said, we took the presidential system of government from, you have experts, PhD holders, researchers, public policy analysts, and sector relevant analysts working directly with senators. And they get paid a lot of money. It's expensive, but they get to do a very good job. Now, that is from individual perspective. As a committee in the Senate, if you are asked to oversight and you are in the power sector and Shiroro Dam has just been done or some power thing has been done somewhere or some road has been done, if you don't have the in-house experts, you must take a consultant. You must take a consultant. People must go and say that the Minister of Works has loaded the budget. This is not up to 10 billion. It is just 5 billion. It's very realistic. It's very pragmatic. It's not just in the air. It's palpable.
Exactly. So what you're saying is that indeed these legislators, speaking from experience, do have expert inputs into their considerations of issues, for example. They do have that.
They do.
Okay.
Or they are supposed to.
As they are supposed to.
They do, or they are supposed to. Choosing my words advisedly.
They do, or they are supposed to. Exactly. I hear you, sir.
To have experts working with them. So if you don't engage an expert, then it's not my call, it's your call.
Okay.
If you don't engage an expert to advise you, then you will now go to the floor of the Senate, and you will not be, or the floor of House of Reps, and your report will be watery. Do you understand? Your report,
you won't be at your best. Exactly. Okay.
You won't.
I beg your pardon, Senator, for interrupting you. Mazi Okoroafo from Arochukwu has been holding on for a while. Good morning to you, Mazi.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, Senator Bajide. What we need now is an executive and legislature. I think there is need for our legislature to try as much as possible. Like the distinguished senator is just saying, all the constituencies where they have their place, at least all the local government they cover, at least they should have a legislative office. So that when people come and drop their demand and the rest, they come back sometimes and gather those things and research and go back to the National Assembly and present it. Because what Nigerians are now is what we call dividends of the. We have seen what is happening now with the subsidy and all the politics they're talking. If the honorable members, the distinguished senators, will try as much as possible and deliver, I think Nigeria will not complain. But the situation whereby distinguished senators and honorable members, they will come. After the election, you will not hear from them. You will not come back to their constituency to find out how are people faring. It's not healthy. Even some of them will even change their phone number. Even some will just put some big dogs inside the company. By the time you reach the gate, when you hear the sound of the dog, you are shocked. You just run high blood pressure because, which is not healthy. There should be at least each month. They then create for the way that each local government, they will go there and they set up town hall meeting. It will help us because this town hall meeting is very, very important because people are after what dividends of democracy. Honestly speaking, Mr. Senator, please help me tell others too that people are just ready because if you didn't do well, come back to 2002, it will not be rosy. So that is why they need for them to do what? To do the needful for the masses now or never. And you have seen about their children out of school, the primary school children, 45 million out of school. What do we do? About their own constituency. Good morning, Mazi Okoroafo from Arochukwu.
Thank you, Mazi Okoroafo from Arochukwu. He brings up a point that, of course, you might want to say something, but he brings up a point. People know their representatives, or should know their senator, or should know their councillors. And so these are the people that they relate with. And oftentimes, you people, you senators, you representatives, you are representing people that actually elected you. And so they have a certain preference list, desire list, attitudinal disposition. Oftentimes the complaint is that once we enable them and they go to their station, House of Assembly, Senate, or representatives, it's like almost like they forget about them and concentrate now on relations between their house, whatever it is, and the presidency. What's the kind of fine balance that has to be maintained where people are waiting for you to come back home and meet them, and how you didn't speak up for them, you didn't represent them as they wanted you to represent them? How difficult a job is that for legislators?
It's a very difficult job. I would let you know, for those who have been in the parliament, at whatever level, even at the level of the ward, even as a councillor, you know. Let me just break it down a little bit. Your job is, your responsibility is to the Federal Republic of Nigeria. You must relate with the executive. You have a party on whose platform you run, and the party has its manifesto, and the party is telling you, push the manifesto of the party. And you are representing a constituency or a senatorial district, as the case may be, and you have also made promises, which for some people is wrong to make promises when you don't even know what your ability or capability will be when you get to Abuja or when you get to your state capital. Now, having said that again, you have to, it's a mixed match, it's a potpourri. You have to blend a fine matrix. between playing your role as a lawmaker in Abuja, for instance, and also playing your role as a representative of the people. If you don't return home, after 2-3 years, you hear the result when election comes. That's the truth of the matter. You have to return home. You have to have a constituency office. You have to have a relationship with the people. You have to blend with the people. Let me say theoretically, there are 4 types of representatives. You have the trusteeship, you have the delegates, you have the partisan, then you have the mirror. The best is always the mirror, which is a mixed blend of the first 3 I've spoken about. Partisanship is very simple. You are going to the parliament because the party has voted for you, and the agenda you are pushing is just your party's agenda. You can put your party's agenda, but you shouldn't put your party's agenda to the peril of the people that voted for you. Trusteeship, as a trustee of the people, you can just say, oh, you've given me your mandate, so let me just go to Abuja and I don't have to revert. Let me just, no, I know what your problems are. No, that's also not good. Then, as a delegate, you are representing them, but at the same time, you must reserve the opportunity to advise them based on your own encounter in Abuja. For instance, if you have a federal constituency that has two local governments, for instance, and your people are pushing for you to go and create a state for them, go to Abuja. What we want you to do, our son, is go and get a state for us. And you come to Abuja and you are pushing to have a state without looking in a very, very, very fine manner at Section 8 of the Constitution, Section 8, subsection 3 in this particular instance. You look at subsection 1 in this particular instance, creation of local government 1 and 2. If you look at it, you discover that you need to work with others. So you have to advise your people that, yes, you want me to go and push for state creation for you, but it's going to be difficult for these reasons. In fact, since 1999, we've not created any.
I think I understand that. I beg your pardon, Senator. I'm so sorry, Senator. I beg your pardon. Thank you very much, because I do understand. I'm extrapolating from what you said, and this is because of time. So sorry to interrupt you. But I wanted to squeeze in Chidi, who is in Kafanchan, who is our last caller for the day. Good morning, Chidi.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning, sir.
And good morning to the distinguished senator in the House.
Good morning, sir. Good morning.
I have always advocated the importance of synergy between the executive arm of government and the executive arm of government, nay, other arms of government. There is the need for them here to work together with one mind. Once somebody is sponsored by a political party and gets into the National Assembly, automatically, it's not as if he is going to leave his political party that sponsored him. But what he should do and understand is that the legislature has become a body. Whatsoever they agreed upon, which is for the interest of the people as far as governance is concerned, whenever the president vetoes or whenever the president signs such a bill into law, it becomes what should be done, in as much as it has a human face and is in line with the democratic practice worldwide.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Chidi, calling in from Kafanchan there. Senator, that was our last caller. We've almost run out of time, but I imagine that you'll be endorsing just almost everything he said.
I do. I agree with him to a large extent.
Okay, to the large. So you are quite optimistic that the quest for legislative, executive synergy is well on course, looking at the antecedents, right? You're optimistic that this shouldn't be too much of an issue, especially as we have a president whose democratic credentials are impeccable.
Yes, his democratic credentials are impeccable as a civil libertarian and also as a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The vice president is also a senator. The chief of staff, 2 decades experience in the National Assembly, former minority leader, former majority leader, former speaker. Then you also have the deputy chief of staff who works directly with the vice president, who also happens to be a senator. The secretary to the government of the federation is also a senator. So I don't see any reason why we should not have a flawless relationship. There must be a lot of synergy between the executive and the legislature in this dispensation, all with a view to delivering public goods and to deliver good governance. And the legislature must do a lot more oversight.
All right, then. We're going to have to leave it there, Senator. I beg your pardon, Senator. Yes. You really must pardon me. It's the exigencies of the job and time. But thank you very much, sir, for making it time for us this morning.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me on your program.
Our pleasure. So that's Senator Babajide Omoworare, former Senior Special Assistant to President Muhammadu Buhari when he was president on National Assembly matters. He's also a former majority leader in the Lagos State House of Assembly. That's our program today. Please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I am Yori Folare. Bye-bye for now.
The following is a paid presentation by ShopX TV.
Do you spend the night trying to get comfortable? Your knees rub bone on bone. Your back and hips ache. You wake up in pain? Not anymore. ShopX TV is proud to introduce the Contour Legacy Pillow, the patented, ergonomically designed tapered leg pillow that naturally fits the contours of your legs, knees, and thighs to help align your spine and alleviate pain. Watch, when you sleep on your side, your leg falls forward, twisting your pelvis and lower back, putting pressure on your spine, hip, and sciatic. But the Contour Legacy Pillow cushions your knees and cradles your legs, relieving stress on joints while restoring your lower back alignment. Sleeping on your side, your leg comes over and puts you out of alignment, causing lower back pain, hip pain, even knee pain. By using the Contour Legacy Pillow, it restores the natural alignment of the spine, helping to alleviate pain and pressure, leading to much more restful sleep. Old-fashioned leg pillows are bulky, but the